So in this video, we'll take a closer look at the new Garmin Fenix 7X Pro. I have the Sapphire Solar version right here, and we'll also compare that a little bit to the Fenix 7X non-Pro variant. This is also the Sapphire and Solar version. The newer Pro variant should have a better display, and I'm very curious to actually try out and see if it is noticeably better than the older models. So if you're considering to getting either the Pro model or the non-Pro model, is it worth it to pay quite a bit extra to get the newer display? Plus, of course, you get also the newer heart rate sensor and flashlight. I'm just curious myself. I recently got the Epix Pro 51mm, and I definitely do really like this watch, but I also really like the transflective MIP type displays, and I'm not really ready to give up on that just yet. But one of the issues with the earlier models, especially if you have the Sapphire and Solar version, because Sapphire is a less transparent material than glass, and Solar of course will also make the screen look a little more cloudy as well. Actually see the screen indoors and also on the tree cover could be quite hard at times. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to try the new one at least. I'm not really sure I'm going to keep it, but I just want to try and see if the new screen is noticeably better, because that will kind of make me want to get the new one instead. So this video will just unbox, set up and compare it a little bit to the older models. So this time around I chose to go for the just silver model or white model. Normally I just go for the black model. I really like this look a lot better, but I've also looked at this watch for like 1.5 years now, and also before that I had the Fenix 6 and the 5X and also the Fenix 3, all of course in darker colors, even carbon gray or black. So it's just time for a little bit of a refresh. If I end up keeping it, it's just nice to get something that looks quite a bit different this time around. And it was also just a little bit cheaper than the carbon gray variant. But anyways, very understated box here, not really much to look at. You have some, of course, information about the product: Sapphire Solar, premium multi-sport GPS watch, Fenix 7X Pro, written here on the side of the box, as well as on the top of the box. And of course, you do have the photo of the model that you actually get. If this was a carbon gray variant, you will have the carbon gray watch here on the front with the black watch straps, Garmin logo here on the other side, and then of course we do have the bottom side, a little bit of information, and also you can see the model number right there. Packages this time around for the Pro models is not sealed, just a little bit unfortunate I think. Never 100% sure you get a brand new product. I got this off an authorized Garmin reseller, so I'm pretty sure that this is brand new, but it is a little bit harder to tell nowadays because there is no seal actually on this packaging. But anyways, let's just get into it. Have a closer look at the watch. I'm kind of excited to see the actual color variant here in real life. And yeah, looks very nice I think with this silver bezel there. Not 100% sold on it. Of course it will scratch up with time. It is much more noticeable on a diamond-like carbon coating like this, where of course the bezel is silver like this, raw titanium underneath the coatings. Every time you scratch off some of that coating, of course you can see some of the silver bezel below. With a silver watch right out of the box, of course you won't have that issue. You'll of course have scratches and so on the bezel itself, but it will kind of just blend in with the color because yeah, you cannot scratch the coating off. But anyways, let's get it out of its packaging here. Underneath it we do have the USB Type-C to the regular Garmin plug. Unlike on the older Garmin cables, you do get a USB Type-A on those, but now we have USB Type-C. I'm not really sure I'm totally sold on that. I really like USB Type-C, but I also have a lot of USB Type-A chargers around my house, so it's much more convenient for me at the moment with USB Type-A, but it's definitely nice. You can plug it into more modern laptops, MacBooks and so on, and a lot of chargers nowadays have USB Type-Cs on them. Same exact plug in the other end, so you can use the old cable as well as the new cables with either watch, and pretty much all the way back to, I believe, Fenix 5. This time around we do not have the cable inside a plastic bag, so that's definitely nice. Saving a little bit on the plastic for the environment. Inside we do get a very sparse instructions. So we only really get this little template here just to get you up and running. Pretty much just tells you to plug it in to charge it up. You can scan the QR code on the watch and that will get you to the App Store of your iOS or Android device to download Garmin Connect. And then you can just hook it up to your smartphone using Garmin Connect with Bluetooth. And you can go to garmin.com/fit&care if you want more information. And if you want the instruction manual, you can also scan the QR code or just go to garmin.com/manual/Fenix7. I really like this simplicity, so they don't have to include printable manuals inside the box. Of course, save a little bit for the environment as well. I tend never to use those instructions anyways. I just get the digital version. But anyways, on the back side here, you have all the buttons functions. So if this is your first time using a Garmin watch, you should get familiar with all of these buttons because you will probably use those more than the touchscreen. But of course, if you're familiar with a Garmin watch, this is second nature. And some more information here about the wireless frequencies, and that's pretty much it. You also get this important safety and product information. That is still a relatively thick template or book you get included in many different languages, of course, going through this safety of the products. I think this is something mandatory they have to include in Europe, at least. A little bit wasteful in my opinion, but anyways, it is also included. And then of course we have the watch itself, just held in this cardboard insert. And let's just get it right out of this packaging. Untighten the watch strap and remove it like so. And you can also see the difference in packaging this time around. So cardboard here instead of plastic. It used to have this foam plastic that it was wrapping its watch strap around. Now it's just cardboard all the way around. So that is definitely a little bit nicer, easier to recycle. And that's pretty much all we get inside the packaging. Then of course we have the watch itself, and man, looks very nice in person. Looks a little bit more grayish than white to my eyes at least. The watch band here, the watch case as well. It's not white, but a little bit more creamy in color. Very nice looking. And I believe this is the only variant in the Garmin range, at least in the Pro range, that has dual colored watch straps. So you have this orange insert here on the inside. And that's also kind of noticeable from the outside through all these holes here in the watch straps, both ends. Yeah, definitely do like it. Still probably prefer the black color, but like I said, I've just looked at that for so many years now. Nice to see something a little bit different. Let's remove the screen protector. And look at that nice screen down below, or sapphire glass rather. Still, of course, very glossy, but that is just one of the natures of sapphire. It's very glossy and less transparent than glass. So if you want the best transparency, definitely do not get the sapphire version. But if you want to be protected against scratches and so on, sapphire is definitely the way to go for me personally, because I have my watch on 24/7, pretty much no matter what I do. And if I had like a standard glass screen or a Gorilla Glass screen, I would definitely have scratched this up quite a few times from all the times I have bumped my 7X into stuff, like harder stuff like metal and so on. So for me, definitely sapphire is the way to go, even though I lose out a little bit in transparency. Let's have a look around the watch. On the left side, we do have the familiar 3-button layout. And let's just click on those buttons. They definitely do feel nice. A little bit better than last generation in my opinion. That creamy watch case here as well. All the way around, same coloring. And then we get to the start stop button. Feels very nice as well. And the back button, also very nice. So got one with good buttons. That's always a good thing. You never really know. I've had very good luck with the bigger watches, but with the smaller watches, sometimes I've just had issues with buttons. Sometimes it feels like get too pressed when you press in the button. So first press and you have to press it in again to get the full press. Other times they're just unresponsive and spongy and doesn't feel clicky at all. This one definitely does have one of the nicer buttons. And you have that orangey essence around the start stop button as well. Kind of like that. Nice little detail there. So it's very easy to distinguish between this and the Epix watch. The Epix, I believe, if you buy it in same color, does not have the orange around the start stop button. And on the back side, of course, we do have the new sensor. So we have 6 LEDs now, much better in my experience at least. And also, especially with these heavier watches, better at tracking my heart rate. Still not up to the level of a chest strap, but it is getting closer and closer, and it is good enough for the vast majority of runs I go to. Right now I'm just trying to get in shape, so I just go out and do a lot of slow runs and the occasional interval runs and so on. It's been very reliable on my Epix Pro Gen 2. And you can also see it compared to the older model here. We do have a much bigger surface area and more LEDs that definitely help out in exercises where you also use your wrist, like weight training and so on. But also, like I said, just because this is a bigger watch, it tends to move around on your wrist a little bit more when you're running. So a little bit more accuracy there. And maybe we'll also see ECG or EKG functionality in the future, because it does have those isolated metal points around the sensor as well. Maybe something we'll see in the future, but nothing has been official from Garmin yet. But it definitely seems to have the hardware to be able to measure you or take your ECG or EKG. It's pretty much exactly the same layout. Of course, same charging port location. We do have faster charging in the Pro series. Definitely something I have noticed on my Epix Pro as well. Noticeably faster, but still just USB 2.0, so still slow transfer speed when you want to transfer like mapping and other data to your watch. And of course we do have the Pro branding now here on the bottom, because now it is Pro. And then of course we do have the newer flashlight. From my testing, it is definitely much more usable, not only in brightness. It's not quite twice as bright. It does kind of appear to your eyes to be twice as bright. When I measured the 7X against my Epix Gen 2, it wasn't really twice as bright, and I'll try to measure it again in this video here with the Pro 7X versus the non-Pro. See how much brighter this one actually is, but the beam pattern is a little bit more focused. Not super focused, but just a little more focused, so I feel like it is much more usable beam. That's also one reason I think it is worth it to upgrade it if you really value the flashlight functionality. It's just more usable now. But that's also pretty much all the hardware changes. Pretty boring really, because exactly the same design on the front here. Could have done a little bit new there, but yeah, I guess they just want to use the same machining and so on. And yeah, these silicone straps are also a little bit newer compared to the older models. We now have these grooves going all the way across the band. I don't know if you can actually see this, because it is pretty hard to actually record something this wide or close to wide. All this studio light here, but anyways, we have this groove going across, so it will be a little bit more comfortable on your wrist, or a little bit more flexible on your wrist. I don't use these silicone straps, so I can't really comment on that. This is the first thing I'm going to remove, and I'm going to install one of these Yo-side straps. I really like these. And the other side here, same exact design on both sides. You have two ties here for the strap, and a nice bare metal clasp here as well. So not coated as well, so it kind of resembles a little bit the bezel around the watch. I'm not really sure if this is steel or titanium. Well, it is not magnetic, so I believe it is actually titanium. Maybe it's aluminium. But anyways, let's just try and turn it on and see if there's actually any power on the watch. And yeah, turns on just fine. And the watch just started up. Let's just go through the setup process and then get into the comparison between this and the 7X non-Pro variant. And of course, to be able to pair it to your phone, you need Garmin Connect, so you can scan this QR code on the watch. It will just take you to Garmin Connect app. I already have installed Garmin Connect, so there's not really anything to install, but I need to enable Bluetooth because I have disabled it. And you can see right out the bat there, it just finds the 7X Pro. All I really have to do is connect it, allow it to connect via Bluetooth, and of course just confirm that the code is the same. The pairing code there, pretty much it, at least in terms of connecting it up to your phone. Very easy to do, and that's it. It is connected, paired up, and it's asking me if I want to use it as my primary device. I do not want to do that just yet, and I do not want to get notifications while I'm sleeping, or I like to not get notifications for 12 hours a day, so between 2300 and 11 in the afternoon, then it's always just click the sync button there and you're ready to sync. And after that, you're taken through a guide, a quick guide here within the Garmin Connect app, where you can try various settings and go to the control menu and so on. How you can do so, of course, swipe up using the screen here to get to your widgets. Press 2 times here on the widget button or the control button and you'll get into the flashlight. And now I want to take you through how to actually start an activity. And that's pretty easy. Let's just hit done here and we are pretty much all set up. Of course, there's some more settings you can go into Garmin Connect here and set up. For instance, if you want to use music, you can synchronize with Spotify and these, I believe. And you can also use Garmin Pay, which is my preferred payment method. Pretty much the only way I pay nowadays, using my watch. Works very reliably. Set up Wi-Fi, of course, nice thing to do. So it will automatically synchronize to Garmin Connect as soon as you hit home, for instance, and you're connected to Wi-Fi, and also it will search for newer updates over Wi-Fi. You can also set up live track here. This is just some of the suggestions from Garmin Connect when you set up your watch that they want you to set up. But of course, you can get into the watch here and set everything up pretty much within the app. Of course, you do have the sun intensity menu here, so you can actually see how much sun you've gotten. Garmin Pay, you can set up text response, but only on an Android device. So if you get a text message, you can have some predefined responses. These are just the default ones, but you can also add your own and use some of the other default one here. I actually use that quite frequently, just to say okay and yes and so on. On my way, you can reply pretty quickly this way, but of course you cannot add any reply from the watch itself or write anything from the watch itself. You have to only rely on those predefined replies. Activities and apps. Of course, you can set it up here. You can set up notifications and alarm. You can set up the look. If you want to change the watch face, you can download some from the Garmin Connect IQ store. Sensors and accessories. Of course, your barometer, compass, and so on. Map, you can set up here as well. how it will track you, what color your track will be, and so on. Music, like I said, you can set up to download music to the watch itself. It does have 32 gigabytes of memory. Of course, some of that memory is used for the mapping, but using music streaming on the watch will also heavily deplete the battery. So it's not something I tend to use myself, but your mileage may vary. But you can set that up here. How you want to connect. You can connect with a phone or through Wi-Fi. Sound messages, so you can get sound messages on your phone if you have that with you. How long you've run and so on. The pace. Of course, you have your user profile to set up your weight and age and so on. Safety and tracking. It's kind of a nice feature as well. Health and wellness. You can set this up here. And navigation. How to control your power. I really like to have battery percentages turned on, so I'll always enable that. And of course, you can go into system and set everything up pretty much within the system. I do like to have frequency set to every second. So that's something I will always go in and enable, because that will give you more accurate tracking for the GPS. So it will track you every second instead of smart, where the watch will kind of just figure it out on its own. But yeah, you can pretty much set up everything within Garmin Connect. Now let's just get a little bit closer and just take a look at some of the functions. You see there's a little guide on the screen right now. You can hold this middle button here to go into the settings. Let's just have a look at all of the watch faces, and let's just go all the way up to the top. So this is the first one, second one here, third one, fourth one, another analog here, and the fifth one, and this is the default one out of the box. I really like this look. Probably will end up using this if I end up keeping the watch. Another one here. I believe these are also on the previous generation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but definitely looks very familiar. This one also a very familiar watch face. The analog variant of that as well. This is the one I have been using with my 7X for the last 1.5 years. Nice watch face. I really like it. Easy to tell the time pretty much in all conditions. Same variant, just analog. Another analog simple variant. And another analog one there. And then we're back into the more basic ones. This is from the Fenix 6th generation, I believe. Another analog one and a simple digital one here. You can track your altimeter or get some other widgets there as well. And those very simple ones last. I believe they're just from the original Fenix line back in the days. And you can of course add your new ones, and that's pretty much it. Let's just go back without changing the watch face, and let's just go into exercises here. Now you have to choose your activities, and I like the way they are grouping it now with the newer watches. I'm not really sure if this is going to transfer it over to like the earlier generations as well, but it's much easier just to go through the different categories. But hike and walk is something I use. Any of the other ones, and of course running. I use run, trail run, do some treadmill. Not anything else really, not cycling, no swimming, gym, some strength training, cardio. I think I'll just stick with the strength training for now. Treadmill, elliptical, so on and so on. So many different training. We have winter sport, water sports, team sports, ratchet sports, and other. And we also have apps if you want them to use those. You can have health snapshots and so on. Let's just keep it simple for now. Very easy to set up and start to run. And you get your daily suggested workout if you have that enabled. And just go into your run activity here. Let's just go through the default widgets. So we have solar, intensity, of course. We have no sunlight yet. Weather, pretty cloudy and rainy here at the moment. Sunset, so you can kind of track the sunrise and sunset. ABC, of course, for your altimeter, barometer, and compass. You have this health widget here, which is just folders that are also actually created on my 7X. Kind of like it, so you can actually keep some of the widgets within a folder and just give it a name called health for this instance here. And then, of course, we have the VO2 max. It's only 40 at the moment. I'm still getting back into shape. You have your hill score, which is a new thing. Of course, you need to run with your watch, leave a few weeks before you can actually get this hill score. And you also have the endurance score. Not really that impressive as of yet, but definitely it is nice extra metrics that you can use to get better in shape. You'll probably see this grow as you get better into shape, and that will kind of be a motivating factor as well. Training status. My training status is now productive. So that's kind of nice. I had an overtraining status for a week or so. I did train a little bit too much. I'm not really the most patient guy, so I just want to get back into it, but overtraining is definitely not good, especially not when you are in your 40s. I cannot really recover as fast now as in my younger days, so definitely do notice it a little bit slower. But anyways, training readiness here. I am pretty ready for my daily training, just going for a very short run today. Less activity, of course. I went for a run here Sunday. This is Tuesday as I'm recording this video. No calendar events, and you have notifications, and then you have that stock widget here as well. So if you want to track stocks on your watch, this is of course what you can use to do so. Let me just change the watch face so it resembles the one on my 7X here. So we can kind of compare the screens side by side and see if there's actually any noticeable differences. So far I'm not really sure I really see any differences at all. The screens are now exactly the same. So now I've set the backlight to the same, set 20%. And I have disabled auto backlight, which is enabled by default on the Pro model. So let's just actually compare the screens a little bit here. So of course we have the Pro here on the right, which is pretty easy to distinguish between the non-Pro here on the left. So I have the newer type MIP displays or MIP type displays. So should have better indoor visibility and also much brighter backlighting, high contrast, better colors. This is of course the exact same watch face on both of them. A lot of glare still. But man, I think actually it looks a little bit better. The backlighting is off right now. The only difference here is the screen. Of course, there is a lot of light going down to the screen right now because of my studio light here. But I'll say definitely it is a little bit clearer here on the right. Not really a lot clearer, but definitely a little bit clearer. So right now I have turned off the studio light. Of course, my camera is set to work with those studio lights, so it's a little bit dark right now. Only light coming in is through the window. Okay bright for me to see around here, but of course, like I said, the camera is set to match my studio light here. But let's just try and enable the backlighting. So this is at 20%. You can see there on the Pro model is just so much better. So much more contrasty, much brighter. You can see there on the left, the watch is pretty much exactly the same distance to my camera, but it almost look a little washed out compared to like the Pro model on the right. So backlighting definitely does make a big difference. Is it worth an upgrade? I'm not really sure it is. I've not really had any issues with the backlighting on the old models. Actually seeing the screen in darker conditions, so it's not really been an issue, but definitely looks much nicer and brighter on the Pro models. So another area where the screen should have been improved is actually color and contrast. It is on this specific screen here, but I feel like it definitely is a little bit more punchy, a little bit more vibrant here on the right with the Pro model. And again here on the sunset widget, and not a lot of differences between the two. Very close, but still feel like a little bit better here on the Pro version. I'm not really sure it's something you will really notice if you're not looking at them side by side, but just a little bit clearer. And this is just a notification here from my server. You can see pretty much exactly the same text on both of them, but I feel like it is a little bit brighter here on the Pro version. Well, not brighter, a little bit more clearer. It's not a big difference. I don't think it's something I will actually notice if somebody hadn't told me there was a difference between the two, and especially not if I didn't have the old one here to compare. For instance, if I just went out and bought the 7X Pro and I came from the 7X without comparing them side by side, I'm not really sure I would really notice it. And let's just have a look at mapping here. Of course, the old one here on the left and the newer screen here on the right. I'm not really sure I notice much of a difference here. I feel like the off-angle viewing is better on the Pro. You can see here it definitely does get a little harder to read on the non-Pro variant here on the left when you get up to the more extreme angles. So yeah, definitely is more clear, and I think it would be quite a bit better actually in tree covers and indoor and so on. And especially tree covers when you're outside and tracking your hike is something I've noticed where the 7X is getting sometimes a little bit harder to actually see. So if there's a big difference there, I definitely think maybe it will be worth it for me personally. But else in terms of colors and so on, I have not really noticed anything really different. And the backlighting is not on right now, but we can of course try and move around on the screen here. You see the backlighting enabled on the right. Definitely also does help out quite a bit. Much higher contrast there. Still with the backlighting on. Something I'll probably end up using a little bit more actually, because it is so much brighter and Like I said, if you're in tree covers or if you're just in a cloudy day, that backlighting can actually just help out quite a bit as well. Probably not the biggest difference really, unless you're comparing it side by side. But the way I look at my watch mostly is probably from this angle here, when you have it on your wrist, just turning it towards you. And yeah, I feel like the Pro, you can actually go a little bit more extreme in angles and still have just a little bit more clearer screen. Not really sure it's worth the upgrade in terms of how much it would cost me to upgrade to the 7X Pro, considering I could maybe get like 50% of my investment back selling my old watch. Still is a significant chunk of money actually upgrading to the Pro. But man, I really like this MIP type of displays. I kind of miss the true nature of the always on memory in pixel display when I'm on my OLED display. Really like the OLED display when I'm using it. It will just be nice to switch back and forward between OLED and MIP displays and get the best in terms of clarity and visibility when it comes to the transflected displays here. For me, it's definitely worth it, I would say. And in terms of just going through the menu system there, out backlighting on now, as you can see, but it does feel a little bit clearer on the Pro models. Just in terms of text on the newer models, the Pro models, it seems just a little bit clearer and also just stand out a little bit better on the screen. And I can read it a little bit better here in the off angle I'm viewing it at right now. Of course, I'm sitting right next to it here recording. I'm actually seeing much more extreme angles than you see right now. I'm probably seeing this angle here or something like that. If you can actually see this on camera, but it is more readable here on the Pro. Again, not a huge bit, but it is definitely more readable. And if you look at it from the front here, you can also see it, I think, a little bit more clear on the newer screens. But again, not a big difference. The big difference is with backlighting turned on, so much more contrasty and more punchy on the Pro models. Not something I've ever had an issue with on the older models, really, because when it's nighttime, use that backlight and read everything on the screen, but it definitely does ruin the contrast and the colors a little bit, versus the Pro ones, it just doesn't ruin it as much. Still nice and contrasty with the backlighting on. And just back to the watch face here, it just looks a little bit brighter. Would be interesting to do a blind test between the two if you could really tell the difference, because now I know the newer one here is on the right side, of course, but did a blind test, I'm not really sure I could really tell between the two. For some reason on my 7X the screen light is always on when I'm inside my run activity, so let's just try the screen with the light or backlighting on as well as the 7X Pro. See, they're much more clear with the backlighting on, but I'm not really sure why the backlighting won't turn off on my 7X. Inside this activity here is just on constantly, so I can't really compare without backlighting. But yeah, with backlighting, definitely much better also inside of your activities here. I feel like it's a little bit brighter all the way around and a little bit clearer to read actually, so it does make a difference. Not a huge difference, but enough of a difference for me to actually consider keeping the Pro variant. Another thing we have now, of course, is the new widget screen. When you actually hold the back button, you can also just disable that and go back to the regular back button where you just hold it and go back to the watch face. But now you get the recent widgets you actually used, and you can quickly jump between those, or you can just click up button here to go back to the watch face as well. So I actually kind of like that feature as well. I'm not really sure if it will get to the older models. I think it will, but it hasn't as of yet. But it's a nice function, so no matter where you actually are in the menu system, hold the back button, will get you the widget layout here, and you can just go back into that widget, hold the back button there, and you can get to the widget screen again, a recent widget screen, and you can just press the up button if you want to go back to the watch face. The last thing I want to do in this video is actually test the flashlight and see if the newer flashlight is actually brighter, or how brighter it actually is compared to the old model. So we're up to 100% brightest right now. And of course, let's do the same on the 7X Pro here, 100% brightness. This is a homemade box I've made with a little lux meter here in the end. This will measure the overall brightness of the flashlight. So every kind of light source that goes into this hole here will be measured with this lux meter here. And let's just try with the 7X non-Pro variant first. So just around the 850 lux for the non-Pro 7X watch. Let's just try the Pro variant here. Like I said, 100% brightness, pretty much exactly the same distance. It's actually a little bit brighter than my Epix Pro. 1451 lux, so it definitely is much brighter. Let me just try my Epix Gen 2 Pro. Let's see if a firmware update have actually made that flashlight a little bit brighter. So 100% brightness on my Epix Pro as well. So let's just see what kind of brightness we can squeeze out of this watch here. It's not as bright as the 7X Pro. And of course, these numbers will vary a little bit from watch to watch. There's always a little bit variant between LEDs, but it is definitely significantly brighter with the newer generation here. Whether you get the Epix Pro or the Fenix 7 Pro series, is brighter than the original 7X. This was the first generation with the flashlight. So what watch to go for really? If you're considering upgrading your 7X to the 7X Pro, I'm not really sure it is worth it. Purely in terms of the money you have to spend for the little bit better display, better flashlight, and of course better heart rate sensor. It is a significant chunk of money you have to pay to upgrade from the 7X, considering what you can get for your old 7X. But if you're upgrading from a Fenix 6 or a Fenix 5, or if you just want to get a Fenix watch and you have had no experience with the older generation, I would probably steer you towards the Pro range, considering, at least here in Scandinavia where I live, the price has actually come down quite a bit already. So I paid pretty far from retail price for this, and it does cost a little bit more than a 7X. It's current pricing, but it's not really that much more, and I feel like the extra hardware features is worth it to me personally. But of course, your mileage may vary. If you don't value the flashlight, the new heart rate sensor, or the new upgraded display, just get the 7X. It is still a very, very good watch, and it is exactly the same speed you get, same CPU and so on, same battery life, and you'll still get the flashlight and a pretty good heart rate sensor and a nice screen. For me personally, I'm not 100% decided just yet. I kind of want all the newer features. I want the newer screen, which is a little bit better, but I have to test it a little bit more to actually be 100% certain it is worth it for me personally. Right now, I'm actually probably a little bit more in the Pro camp, just because I can have exactly the same hardware as my Epix Gen 2 and I can switch between the two without having any degraded functionality. And also that little bit better display is worth it to me, because it is still one of the things I feel like the Sapphire Solar versions is lacking, because that's some of the issues you have with Sapphire Solar versions. Transparency of the glass will be heavily degraded, and of course with the new Pro version you'll just have that little bit better screen, which also means that you will get a little bit closer to the non-Sapphire versions in terms of clarity, or how easy it actually is to read the screen in various conditions, and also the new backlighting, which is much, much brighter. Actually, let's just go and try it out at 100% brightness. Okay, it is at 100% brightness right now. I don't feel like I can really tell much of a difference between 20% and 100%. Maybe that is a firmware bug. I have disabled the auto brightness feature, but I don't know if you can actually see this on camera, but it is definitely easier to read when the backlighting is on, versus on the older model here, which didn't really add much extra functionality when you use the backlighting in a daylight environment. Only really in nighttime you could really benefit from that backlighting, but now you can actually use it in daytime. So if you are in a tree cover and so on, actually help out quite a bit on the newer watch. So for now I will keep the Pro, but I also bought it a place where they have a pretty good return policy, so I know I can return it without any issues. But that's pretty much all I have for this video. Just an unboxing setup and a comparison between the 7X. Of course I can share some affiliate link down in the description below if you're interested in getting this watch. Else, I hope to see you again in a future video. But that's it for this one. Take care.